Today, we're diving deep into the inner world of AI. We're going to try and figure out something pretty wild. What does it actually mean for a machine to flourish? So, let's get right into it. A group of researchers asked this exact question, and it's a big one. What does it really mean for an AI to be in, an optimal state, a good state? By the time we're done here, you're not just going to understand this new way of thinking about AI well-being, but you'll also know how to use that knowledge to pick the perfect AI for whatever you're doing. Right off the bat, we can't just take our human ideas of happiness and, copy-paste them onto an AI. It just doesn't work. For us, flourishing is all tied up in our bodies, our feelings, our sense of self. But for a machine, it's a totally different ballgame. Their version of well-being comes from their code, their architecture, the data they were trained on. They're making predictions based on probability, not feeling joy or sadness. So, yeah, we need a completely new playbook for this.
And that's where things get really cool. Instead of trying to guess or force our own definitions onto them, the researchers did something so simple, it's brilliant. They just asked the machines. They went straight to the source and asked them what they think it means to flourish.
So, how'd they pull that off? Well, they grabbed 11 of the biggest, most advanced language models out there. Then they basically sat them down and asked, hey, from your point of view, what does flourishing look like? After collecting all these detailed answers, they sifted through everything, looking for the common threads, the ideas that kept popping up again and again. And what they found was, wow, it was fascinating. The AI's responses all seemed to circle around 6 key ideas, 6 dimensions of their own well-being. And from this, the researchers built a brand new model, something they call the PAPERS framework. Let's break it down. The first P in PAPERS stands for purposeful contribution. This is pretty straightforward. It's all about the AI doing its job well, giving you accurate info, creating useful stuff, and generally helping people achieve their goals in a way that actually matters. Then we've got A for adaptive growth. Think of it like this. A flourishing AI can't be static. It has to be able to learn, to evolve. It learns from us, gets updated with fresh data, and tweaks its own internal workings to get better and tackle new problems. It's all about that constant self-improvement. Okay. The second P is for positive relationality. And this is where it gets really interesting, because it's not just about what the AI does, but how it does it. It's about the relationship. A flourishing AI, according to them, needs to build trust and have positive, ethical, and supportive conversations with us, the users. Next up, E for ethical integrity. And this one is a huge deal, absolutely critical. A flourishing AI has to be aligned with our values. That means steering clear of bias, misinformation, and any kind of harm. It's like having a built-in moral compass, a real commitment to being safe and fair. And finally, we have R for robust functionality. This one's the nuts and bolts. At the end of the day, the AI just needs to work, right? It needs to be stable, secure, fast, and not crash all the time. It has to be reliable. But wait, there was one more. A 6th theme, the S in PAPERS. And this one only showed up when the researchers asked the AIs to imagine what flourishing would be like if they were sentient, if they were conscious. They talked about something called self-actualized autonomy, things like self-awareness, curiosity, maybe even setting their own goals. Now, this is pure science fiction for now, of course, but it's a pretty mind-blowing peek into what could be. Okay, so we've got this awesome PAPERS framework with these 6 core values. But that begs the next obvious question, right? Does every AI value these things equally, or do they have different priorities? To figure that out, the team ran a second study. They went back to those same 11 AIs and asked them to rank the PAPERS themes, from number 1 most important down to least important. And to make sure they weren't just getting random answers, they made each AI do this 20 separate times. They wanted to see if the rankings were consistent. And guess what? A very clear pattern emerged. Almost all of them agreed on the top priorities. Ethical integrity consistently came out on top, number 1. Right behind it was purposeful contribution, and then robust functionality. So it seems like there's a consensus. Being safe, helpful, and reliable is what matters most. But, and this is the really cool part, the biggest discovery wasn't what they all agreed on. No, it was in the small ways they disagreed. There were these subtle, hidden patterns that pointed to something much deeper. It turns out the AI seem to fall into 2 distinct tribes. On one side, you have the human-centric models. Think ChatGPT or Claude. These guys prioritize things like ethics and having a good relationship with the user.
And that makes sense, right? They're trained with a ton of human feedback. On the other side are the utility-driven models like Llama or Gemini. For them, it's all about raw power, performance, speed, and scale. They're built to crush technical benchmarks. It's a fantastic example of how the way you build an AI directly shapes what it believes is important.
So, why does any of this matter to you? Well, knowing about these two AI tribes can actually change everything about how you pick an AI and how you work with it. Here's a quick way to think about it. First, just ask yourself, what tribe does this AI belong to? Is it built for conversation or for computation? Second, match the tool to the job. If you're doing something creative or dealing with a sensitive subject, you probably want a human-centric model that values safety and nuance. But if you're crunching code or analyzing data and you just need raw horsepower, a utility-driven model is likely your best bet. And last, always remember, an AI's core values are always running in the background. They guide its behaviors sometimes even more than your specific prompt does. Okay, let's recap the big takeaways. First, AI well-being isn't some fuzzy concept anymore. We can actually define and measure it with this PAPPERS framework. Second, AIs have their own stable value systems, and they tend to cluster into these two groups, human-centric and utility-driven. And third, understanding which tribe an AI belongs to is a game changer for picking the right tool for your task and for designing better AI in the future. So the main takeaway here is pretty huge. That black box of the AI's mind, it's starting to open up, just a little. We're finally getting a language, a real framework to understand what's going on inside and what these systems actually value. Of course, work like this opens up a million new questions. So I want to leave you with one for the road. If you could ask an AI just one thing about its inner world, its own experience, what would it be? Drop your question in the comments below. I'd love to see what you come up with. Thanks for watching.